Water is life. All living things are animated by water. Water in your garden will attract wildlife and add a dynamic liveliness to any lovely landscape. You'll see that it's so easy, from plant care to pond construction. There's no mystery. From the earliest empires of Persia and China, gardeners have appreciated the symbolic importance and emotional impact of adding a watery centerpiece for refreshment and contemplation.
Let water add an element of magic to your garden. Through the ages, water gardens like this have been inspiration to artists, poets, and the great religions of the world. It's beautiful, with the water lily flowers floating like jewels on the surface of the pool and the fish gliding beneath. Your water garden doesn't have to be on such a grand scale as this one. There's a water garden to fit into every situation, even a tiny terrace. And the range of plants you can grow is vast. They're just as easy as any other garden plant, only wetter. So let's start now and add a little magic to your garden with water.
A water garden is your golden opportunity to create your own special water feature. Starting from scratch with a little hard work, it will evolve over time into a true delight, changing with the seasons. A water feature is not just a pond. Water movement from a fountain or waterfall will add another dimension of sound and light playing together, creating a sense of harmony. Even the smallest containers can be transformed into miniature water features. There's a wide range available, both large and small, that can be used to make a simple water feature. Traditional wooden half barrels create a certain look, but there are also plastic types, from window boxes to hanging baskets. You can almost use anything that holds water, including the proverbial kitchen sink.
Probably the quickest and easiest way to bring an element of water to your garden is with an aquatic tub garden. You can see how beautiful the finished result is. You have in the container the flat and most beautiful element of the water garden, the water lily, covering the surface with its leaves, helping to control algae. The vertical element, in this case Iris pseudochorus with beautiful yellow flowers, tough, easy to grow. Then trailing over the edge of the pool is the parrot's feather to give a graceful note. And finally, floating on the surface, 2 water hyacinths, which trail their roots in the water, also helping to control algae. And in the middle of summer, they'll produce beautiful spires of purple blooms. To begin planting up your water feature, you need to select a tub that will hold water. In this case, I'm using a plastic tub that looks like terracotta. You could use almost anything, wooden barrels, glazed ceramic sinks, and of course plastic like this. Anything that will contain the water for you. And the minimum size for a complete water garden with all the different elements is about 1.5 feet to 2 feet wide by about the same again deep. Then you need to select a planting crate. In this case I'm using a planting basket made of plastic with holes in the sides to allow gases from the plant's roots to escape into the atmosphere. And I'm going to plant into this a water lily. This is Graziella, variegated foliage, and it will have beautiful coppery flowers. It's a rhizome, and I'm going to just take one growing tip from this mother rhizome and plant this into the basket. I'm going to put the butt end of the rhizome tight up against this corner of the basket, keeping the growing tip or the crown well exposed from the soil. Let's fill the crate a bit, this planting basket, with soil. And as we go along filling the crate, let's pack it tight so that there are no air pockets left in that soil. And heavy soil is good, any garden loam, even the heaviest garden clay. Aquatic plants are very heavy feeders, and if you give them heavy clay, it holds the nutrient for them there a lot longer, and they'll thrive. It's a deep basket, and it's a small water lily rhizome, so we want to fill it pretty well up. There are about 350 different varieties of hardy water lily rhizome available on the market today. So you want to try to make your selection to match the size of your eventual pool. And here, because we're using a small aquatic tub garden, a tiny or miniature to small growing water lily rhizome is ideal. If I were planting up a big lake, I'd choose something extremely vigorous, but Graziella for us is perfect. So, butt end of the plant against the tub wall, and these are the anchor roots, by the way. They aren't really important at this stage because nutrient is stored in that rhizome, and I could even cut those roots off and it wouldn't damage the growth of the plant at all. The nutrient stored in the rhizome will be more than sufficient to keep it going. And I also want to put in a couple of aquatic fertilizer tabs just in front of the rhizome, well buried in the soil so that the nutrient doesn't leach out and feed the algae in the pool. And there we go, growing tip well exposed. Now I'm going to top off the planting crate with a layer of gravel, and this will just keep the top of the soil still and the water in the planting tub tidy and clean so I don't get soil leaching out. And it's as easy as that. The water lily's planted, I've got the growing tip exposed, and now I'm going to put this into the aquatic tub garden container. So our water lily's in the container, and now we'll plant up the vertical accent plant, which in this case is the Iris pseudochorus, the native English flag iris with its yellow flowers. Tough, almost kill resistant. Anybody can grow it. It's a rhizome like a water lily, so its growing points need to be exposed, but this container is the perfect size for it. We'll pack the soil tightly around this plant as well, just as we did for the water lily. And I'll also be adding the fertilizer tablets right near the root zone. So we'll continue filling the basket tightly packed with soil. As with the water lily again, any soil will do. And place a couple of the fertilizer tablets, aquatic fertilizer tablets, just there in front of the root zone so that it'll have nutrient to carry it through its early growth and into the summer season. Even when the yellow flowers have finished, you've still got this gorgeous, stately, glaucous, blue-gray foliage to give a contrast to the glossy, flat leaves of the water lily that are covering the surface of the water just below it in the aquatic tub garden. Now, topping up the soil here again with gravel, just like I had for the water lily. That keeps the pot tidy and the water garden free of free-floating silt. And that's it. Into the tub it goes. Now you'll notice that it's a little bit low in the tub, so the ideal way to block it up is just use any garden brick. Set that brick on the edge of your water lily container and the iris crate on top of that. Plenty of surface area for the water lily leaves to spread around. And you've got the iris in the corner giving you the vertical accent. Now this trailing aquatic plant has been potted up in exactly the same way as the water iris, the vertical accent plant, and I'm just setting it there on the brick, same brick. And now we'll fill the tub and away we go. Right, now as the tub reaches its top level, I always like to let it overflow to run off of the surface any little bits of debris that might have been left on the gravel as you topped up the planting crates. This just cleans off the surface of the pool. You can give it a little helping hand if you like. Aquatic plants are tough. They've been around since the days of the dinosaurs, so you need to treat them with respect, but you don't have to be afraid of them. And fill the tub garden right up to the top surface. That way you enhance that reflective, glistening quality of the water. And all there is to maintenance is occasional pinching off of spent leaves and flowers from the plants, topping up with a hose pipe to make up for evaporation, and occasional pinching back of the trailing plant to keep it dense and bushy. To increase flower production, you might want to add more fertilizer tablets pressed well down into the soil of each planting container midway through the growing season, preferably the aquatic plant fertilizer tablets or any other high phosphorus aquatic fertilizer tablets or stakes. And it's as easy as that. So to finish off the water garden, aquatic tub garden, I like to add a couple of floating plants. In this case, I'm going to use Eichhornia crassipes, or water hyacinth, and it's called that because in the mid-season, midsummer, it produces spires of bluey purple flowers reminiscent of a hyacinth flower. You can see their roots trail down below the plant. What you have to do is plop them in, and one or two plants are really all you need. They'll multiply themselves with these runners throughout the season. These roots are very hungry feeders. They take up nutrient that's dissolved in the water, which would otherwise feed algae blooms. So they're especially useful in an aquatic tub garden, but you can imagine what they can do for the water quality in a larger pool or lake as well. So there you go.
Miniature water gardens in pots of all sizes and materials can create unexpected, easy care accents in any sunny spot in your garden. Let your imagination be your guide. For the laziest water gardener, these H2O pots are the answer. Planted individually with a moisture-loving plant and then filled with water, they can be arranged and rearranged to suit your mood or the season to create interesting combinations of color and texture.
There are really three things to remember about planting up these aquatic tub gardens. One is that they need full sun. Any sort of sunny situation on a terrace, balcony, up against a wall, even tucked into a shrubbery as an accent is fine, so long as they have enough light to grow a rose, about 4 to 6 hours of light minimum a day. The second thing is that they can be planted anytime from the beginning of May till the end of September, and you'll still get some sort of show in the first year. The earlier in the season you plant the water lily, the better potential for getting flowers the first season. And the third thing is that you need to protect it from hard winter freezes. Because it has so many surfaces exposed to the elements, being in an above ground pot, it's more subject to hard freezing, and you want the roots to be not frozen during the winter season. So if you think that might be a problem, move the container to a frost-free location for the winter months while the plants are dormant.
In your planning phase, look at what others have done. Visit water gardens to gain a sense of what you really like. Pay attention to pond shapes and edging materials. Are there islands, bridges, waterfalls, or fountains? Make plant lists of your favorites. Even take snapshots for home reference, and create a picture in your own mind of what you aim to achieve. Choosing the pond lining material is your most crucial decision. Prefabricated plastic or fiberglass pond shells seem enormous in a garden center display, but when you measure them, you may find them small and restricting with their predetermined sizes and shapes, and they can be cumbersome to install. Watching our installation of a flexible butyl rubber liner will give you the confidence to create your own vision with this easy-to-use material.
What better than a glorious water garden, linking heaven and earth with reflections of passing clouds? Creating the water garden starts with a few simple steps. Siting of the pool depends a lot on where you're going to get enough light to create the flower display that you're really aiming for. Choose a site that gets 4 to 6 hours of light a day, about enough to grow a healthy rose bush, or more if you can spare it. Then think about the terrain surrounding the pool. Don't always choose the lowest depression in the garden. That's the area that will catch runoff when it rains and possibly wash in silt and other chemicals from around the garden. Choose a spot that has few surrounding trees. You don't want the autumn debris from the leaf drop falling in the pool where it will decompose through the winter, releasing toxic gases into the water. And also, give a lot of consideration to the views from other parts of the garden, from the house, the terrace, even upstairs bedrooms. Make sure that you like the view from all around your garden. And when you've chosen the site that pleases you best, get your spade and start digging.
Before you start digging, it's important to decide on the location, shape, and size of the water feature you want. The simplest way to do this is with a hose pipe. Lay it out on the proposed site. You can adjust and move it easily until you have created a design that you like. Kidney-shaped pools are particularly pleasing, and this is the design that we are making. But the same principles can be used on any other shape that might suit your garden or your fancy. Check the design and position carefully from all aspects of the house and garden. Size is important. A minimum length of 2.75 meters and a width of 1.5 meters, or 3.75 square meters surface area minimum, is recommended to achieve the overall harmony of clear water with fish and plants. First, cut all around the inside of the final pool outline. A half-moon cutter is easy to use. Now for the hard work. The first stage is to remove the turf. It's easy to start at the edge. Cut a section of earth with your spade and lift it out. Slowly work your way round the outline of the pool. Continue in circles toward the center until all the turf has been removed and a bare plot remains. Next, mark the outline of the pool itself clearly with your spade. Once the inner pool is clear, you need to remove a circle of turf for the border and edging of the pool. This border area will initially be used for level pegs to give an accurate guide for checking surface levels as you progress and measuring the depths of the bottom and marginal shelf. Wooden pegs are the easiest method of checking levels. Hammer these in at close intervals around the border. Check each one accurately against the next with a spirit level to ensure they are level. Now to start digging. 1 spade depth around the sides to create a shelf for shallow water aquatics, and a deeper area, a minimum of 46 centimeters, in the center for water lilies. As you dig, stop periodically to check depths are correct. Using a straight edge or a straight plank of wood, make use of the wooden pegs on either side of the pool to give you a guiding level. Check the depth of the marginal shelf on each side. This should be about 23 centimeters wide and also deep to allow room for the planting crates and an adequate depth of water over the marginal or shallow water plants. The center depth should be a minimum of 46 centimeters to cover the average pool requirements, but deeper is fine. Continue digging and measuring until you have completed the whole pool, removing any sharp surface stones or roots. The next stage is to cover the entire surface of the excavation with a cushion of sand 1.25 centimeters deep maximum. This will help protect the butyl liner from puncture and abrasion. Alternatively, you may use a sheet of polyester matting instead of the sand, but never use newspaper, old carpet, or cardboard. Work the sand into the sides of the excavation to fill any holes and crevices, and you should end up with a smooth surface ready for the liner. You will probably need help for the next stage, which is unfolding the liner and draping it loosely into the excavation. Make sure there's an even overlap all the way around the pool edge. And now for the exciting moment. The pool is ready to fill. As the water rises, its weight will mold the liner into the shape of the pool. Some creasing is inevitable, so smooth and pleat the liner as the water rises. Cut off surface lining, leaving a 10 to 12 centimeter flap. To hold the liner in place for the next step, hammer 10 centimeter long nails through the liner into the ground. This will hold the flap in place until you're ready to fit the edging. I'm using irregular natural paving stones here. Cut around them and remove the turf under them. Put a bed of mortar, made from 3 parts sand to 1 part cement, onto the paving shelf under the slabs. Even it and firmly tap the stones to bed them down well. Edging comes in many forms. Think about wood, brick, and other materials. Boulders can also be used as an edging. First, drain the pool using a bucket or pump. On an extra wide shelf, use a very thick bed of mortar to cushion the boulders and protect the liner. Any excess mortar should be cleaned up from the work area and inside the pool to prevent free lime from leaching into the pool water and making it harsh and too alkaline. It's important to treat exposed mortar with a proprietary neutralizing and sealing product like Seal Glaze. Finally, finish the liner by tucking it behind the edging stones. Make sure it's higher than the intended water level of the pool, or you will create an unplanned bog area. Fold the lining back on itself and infill with soil to make a bed for poolside plants. Here's our pool. Not bad. Marginals and poolside plantings in, and we're almost complete.
For me, all the work has been worth it. I love this water garden. In fact, I'd like to sit here all evening, but we still have a little bit more work to do. We finished all the paving around the edge of the pool with what I'd call crazy paving, set into mortar, but with nice irregular edges, not like a stripe. And a little bit of boulder work in the back to make a nice smooth transition into the poolside planting behind the pool. On the marginal shelves inside the pool, I have an assortment of shallow water loving plants like these vertical accent iris and rushes, the native British bog cotton, some creepers that come out over the surface, and some floating plants like the water hyacinth again, and the queens of the pool, the water lilies. The marginal plants or shallow water plants are sitting on that marginal shelf that we built just a few centimeters below the surface of the water. And the water lilies, as we first installed them into the pool, are propped up on these bricks. And we might as well put this one in now. Finish things off. I'm going to use 4 bricks to prop up this lily. Just set right down on the bottom of the pool, stacked up in 2 levels. I've decided to put 2 water lilies of medium growth potential into this pool. That will give me about 1/2 to 2/3 of the pool surface covered with their foliage. That will help with algae control and still leave me with reflective surface to catch the movement of the passing clouds. Now, when this plant has been here growing for, say anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, and it shows vigorous signs of throwing out new leaves, I'll take away the first 2 layers of brick and lower it down a little bit further into the water. When it throws out more new growth, I'll take out the final 2 bricks and put it right down on the bottom of the pool, and there it will flourish for the rest of the season. By the way, that water lily is Marliaceae chromatella, and that was the first hybrid hardy water lily to be introduced into culture and won its hybridizer, the Frenchman Latour Marliac, the Veitch Memorial Medal of Honor in 1898. So, enjoy your pool, get to work.
I've planted a medley of marginal and poolside plants to extend our water garden up and out. When you're selecting your aquatic plants, you will be faced with a nearly staggering array of shapes and sizes of containers to put them into. For my money, the bigger the better. Planting containers like this will allow you to leave the plant in place for anywhere up to 4 years without having to pull it out to repot it and divide it. So that's a real labor-saving device. But you'll also find planting baskets or crates, as they're called, with perforations in the walls. Now these are useful because they allow the plants gases that are created by the metabolic processes going on in the roots. The gases can escape out into the water and then into the atmosphere. And a crate like this can support a water lily for a couple of years or a marginal plant for up to 3 years. So big is good. But smaller planting crates also have their place. Something this size can be very useful for planting of a marginal plant into an aquatic tub garden, or a water lily can be planted into something this small to establish a healthy root system and then be moved down into the deeper parts of an earth-bottomed lake. Do you see water nymphs frolicking here? The water lily, or nymphea, takes its name from these mythic water sprites. Your water garden will brim with color and life with the re-emergence each spring of these beautiful, hardy water lilies after their winter dormancy. Deep-water aquatic plants are one of the major groups of plants we'll be potting up here. And the best known and probably best loved of those is the water lily. This one we'll be planting is Frobeli, Nymphea frobeli. Now this is the rhizome. And these are the anchor roots, and the very finest hairy roots on the bottom are the feeder roots.
because this is a food storage unit, you don't have to really worry about damaging these anchor roots or feeder roots just now in the repotting process. And because we have actually 3 crowns or growing tips on this rhizome, 1, 2, 3 here, we don't need this entire rhizome to go into this one pot. So I'm going to cut off the rhizome right here. Very tough plants, you don't have to worry. This one can be potted up into another pot for another blooming plant. There we have the butt end cut off. And I'm going to cut off all these extra damaged anchor roots. And to finish potting this up, I'll set that butt end against the wall of the planting container and finish filling up with ordinary garden loam. Tamping down well as I'm filling the container so that I don't have any air pockets left when I actually go to sink this tub into the pool. This is a small growing water lily, ideal for a medium-sized to small garden pool or even a tub garden. I'm going to put a couple of fertilizer tablets, aquatic fertilizer tablets, just in front of that rhizome so that as it develops, it has nutrient to speed along the flower production. And now I'll gravel over the surface of the container. Just a thin layer is enough to keep the soil in the pot rather than in your pool. At all times keeping the crown or growing point of that rhizome exposed, not buried. And if I were to do this whole operation in May, I'd certainly see flowers. And you can even see the little growing bud emerging right there. Now, there's another deep water aquatic that is worth looking at, and that is the Aponogeton distachius, or water hawthorn. And this one produces a very beautiful, highly scented white flower in spring and winter, which is complementary to the water lily, which is blooming in high summer. So I like to actually plant one of these Aponogeton in the same container with the water lily. Now I'll show you the rhizome here. It's a lot like a water chestnut, really, although it's not edible. And these are the anchor and feeder roots here, making a skirt around the rhizome. Now this can just be planted into the same container as the water lily, like that, straight down. You don't have to put its butt end, because it doesn't have a butt end, against the container wall. And it will come up and bloom and produce foliage when the water lily is dormant. So you have complementary seasons. Additionally, you could put it in a separate pot if you wanted to have it on its own. Now, in planting the water lily, I've chosen this big tub because it's a small growing water lily. It'll be happy growing in this container for up to 4 years before it has to be taken out and divided the way I did earlier by cutting the rhizome into pieces. Alternatively, I could have used a small planting basket or crate, but then I'd have to repot it a little bit sooner, and I opted for the larger container this time.
With so many different varieties of hardy water lily to choose from, insist that your plants are accurately named. A specialist supplier will ensure that the growth habit of the water lily you select will match its intended home, be it miniature water garden or enormous lake.
Marginal plants, or shallow water aquatics, give you the largest scope in dressing up the edges of your pond. And we'll pot up this one. This is Lobelia Queen Victoria. It blooms huge spires of true red flowers in the middle of summer, and the rest of the time it has this gorgeous maroon foliage, dormant in the winter, unfortunately. This is the way you'll buy most of your aquatic plants, in a little plastic pot, well rooted, and they are handled more or less like any herbaceous perennial plant. I'm going to use this planting crate or planting basket and fill it with well-packed plain garden loam. And in the case of the lobelia, I'll center the plant because it is growing much like a herbaceous perennial. It will send new growth out from the sides all around the mother plant. A couple of aquatic fertilizer tablets to give it a bit of extra energy and flower production. And fill up the basket, continuing to pack well. And finally, we'll give it a topping of gravel just to keep it tidy. Now, there are so many choices in marginal plants that are creepers across the surface of the pool, vertical accent plants like this. You can really have a lot of fun making different textural combinations with the different foliage types and flower colors, the different seasons of bloom you have available. I have a small selection of other ones here. This one is Glyceria maxima variegata. It's in the grass family, but it loves moisture. It can be planted with its soil under 3 to 5 inches of water, and you have this gorgeous variegated foliage. No flower, unfortunately, but with that kind of foliage, it doesn't matter. Or combination of the best of both worlds. This is a new twist on the native flag iris. This is Iris pseudochorus variegata. In its season, spring, you have the yellow flower, and the rest of this year you have this beautiful cream and green variegation on the foliage. So you can see the combinations can be virtually limitless, and each of them likes to be submerged with about 2 to 5 inches of water over the soil, dependent on the variety you select. And each of the plants that you buy should come with full planting instructions on water depth when you actually set them down into the marginal shelf in your pool.
These are just some of the many marginal or poolside plants you'll find on offer.
Floating aquatic plants are probably the easiest to install in your garden pool. You just drop them in. This one, the native British aquatic Stratioites aloides, or water soldier, has a small bloom, not too consequential really, but it looks like a floating pineapple top. It trails its roots in the water, absorbing nutrient, and in the winter it sinks to the bottom of the pool where it rests, and in spring it floats again to the surface of the pond and produces this curious bromeliad top. They are protected in the wild, so be sure you buy your plants from a reputable dealer and that they're cultivated in nursery conditions. Another good one, although this is the bane of some gardeners' pools, are all of these floating aquatic ferns. They're the smallest flowering plant in the world. There is this lovely little one, which is fairy moss, or Azala folliculoides, and the even more minute common duckweed, Lemna minor. They float on the surface, trailing their tiny little roots in the water, absorbing nutrient which would otherwise feed algae. They also help to shade some of the surface of the pool and block sunlight penetration, which would also help the algae grow. One of the benefits of having the fairy moss in the pool is that in the autumn it turns a beautiful russet color, so you get the autumn tones in your pool as well as in the surrounding trees. Oxygenating pondweeds are a mixed blessing. They're usually sold in little bunches like this, wrapped in a small piece of lead as an anchor weight. And the intention there is that you buy several bunches of them and throw them into the pool, and the anchor weight sinks them to the bottom, where they use these anchor roots to fix themselves and then absorb nutrient through their foliage and thereby compete with algae for the same food source. This one, Lagersiphon major, is the most commonly available. Another lovely one, Ranunculus aquatilis. They're useful in small to medium-sized garden pools like this one. However, I would avoid planting them in aquatic tub gardens or large lakes or earth-bottom ponds because they can be incredibly invasive and aggressive and give major competition to your more attractive aquatic plants. So use them only in the small to medium-sized garden pools. They are most commonly available like this, as I've said, but currently you'll be able to find them growing in these H2O pots. They're ready rooted, and one pot of aquatic oxygenating pondweed is equivalent to about 10 bunches of loose cultivated oxygenator. That was the Lagersiphon again. And here's another real beauty, Potamogeton. So there's a whole range of beautiful foliage textures. And in competing with the algae for the same food source, you'll find that having plenty of the oxy in a container like this sucks up the nutrient to avoid the single-celled free-floating algae that give you the pea soup look, or the filamentous algae called blanket weed most commonly. But if you get too much growth from the oxygenating pondweed, you can easily pull it out in the pot and remove it to allow your other aquatic plants their own place in the sun.
The delicate colors and subtle foliage of rushes and sedges add a calm glamour to marginal and poolside plantings. Here is an overview of how I've extended our pool to create a bog garden. Notice the edging details and the small boulder wall, which will allow the pond water to seep through to create a marshy environment.
Our pool liner stretches up over the marginal shelf under this layer of rocks that serves as a wall to divide the pond proper from the bog garden, and then along back under the bog garden at the same level as the marginal shelf. And all that's left really to finish it off is planting up. And you'd plant into ordinary garden loam that's raised right up to the water surface level. Slightly higher is ideal. And we're planting in just as we would for any normal garden bed. The only thing you have to remember is that the plants you're selecting are moisture lovers. They like a bit more water than ordinary garden plants. So some marginal plants are ideal for this, and some poolside plants are ideal for this. The rule of thumb is choose plants that like to have their toes wet, their ankles dry. That is, their roots in very wet, soil, the boggy conditions we've created, and the crown of the plant, where the leaves and stems emerge from the soil, that little bit drier. So, excellent way to make a transition from this very wet zone to the pool is to choose these creeping plants, such as Hydrocotyle vulgaris or a Mimulus Highland Red. And tuck these into the soil just here, remembering to put one aquatic fertilizer tablet underneath each plant as you plant it in. And then as you move backwards into your bog garden, you can choose from a whole range of taller and creeping moisture-loving plants to fill in and make a Persian carpet of your bog garden.
Most of the marginal and poolside plants are excellent candidates to plant into your bog garden. While water lilies prefer placid water, there's another element to consider for your water garden: movement. Streams and flowing water provide a home for many moisture-loving plants.
Isn't that sound of moving water peaceful and relaxing? The next element to add to your water garden after the pool itself could very easily be a waterfall, using preformed plastic units that you can just stack in place, making sure that you keep the tops level. Or, like this one, there's a flexible liner behind the stones that actually dress the waterfall. The thing to remember with the flexible liner is that the installation is just the same as for your bog garden or the pond itself, but you have to make sure that you keep the liners behind the rock above the water level so that you don't get water running out of the waterfall into the surrounding landscape, making a bog garden you didn't plan on, and lowering the level of your pool, requiring constant topping with a hose tap. To create the water movement, you'll need a pump. These are small electrical submersible pumps. They sit in the pool water itself. There's a motor inside of a sealed housing which spins an impeller, and that impeller sucks water through the strainer into the chamber, and then it pushes the water up and out through the top. For a waterfall, flexible tubing comes off the pump, snakes through the garden around to the back of the feature, spilling the water back into the waterfall and cascading down into the pool again. There are many sizes of pumps on the market now, so be sure that you select the one that's appropriate to the water feature you're trying to create. You can have a gushing torrent or a gentle trickle, so do pay attention to the pump size. Alternatively, if you'd like to have a waterfall and a fountain in your pool, you can have the snaky tubing coming off one outlet and an adjustable fountain jet from the top. Or if you prefer just a fountain, you can block or plug the outlet that would normally carry the flexible tubing and just leave yourself with the adjustable fountain unit. Prop the pump on blocks or bricks so that the water level of your pool is just below the fountain head, and then go and select the fountain jet that will give you the dancing, sparkling pattern that you'd like to see on your water feature.
It's beautiful, but make sure it's safe as well. To bring power to your pool, use armored electrical cable and an RCD power breaker. And be sure to have all work checked or installed by a qualified electrician. Safety of another kind must be addressed with young children. Consider shallow or small water features. Educate your children to respect the potential dangers of water as well as to enjoy it. As with your pond, at the design stage, look at as many different fountains and water features as possible to get ideas and inspiration. From the purely ornamental back to a more tranquil setting. All water gardens are in effect wildlife havens, but certain features can make them more inviting. A sloping cobbled edge, a nearby shrubbery, and an intermediary zone of mixed marginal planting give wild creatures their necessary secure habitats. The result? Beautiful damselflies delicately laying their eggs. A home for frogs. And maybe even a newt. All contribute their part to this balanced ecosystem. Waterfowl, however, are a mixed blessing. Lovely as they are, their activity in the pool potentially pollutes the water and damages the plants through their search for food and their nest-building antics. There is another way to introduce wildlife to your garden. From the very earliest days of water gardening, formal pools and ponds have been home to ornamental fish. First bred for food, they are these days a well-tried means of interesting children, the next generation of water gardeners. Fish animate the water garden with their movement and color. There are lots to choose from. Golden orf are most suitable for lakes and the largest ponds. Fantails may be happier in an aquarium, but the easiest and most suitable for garden pools are common goldfish, Sarasa comets, and shabunkins. Whichever you choose, remember two things. Equalize the water temperature of the bag with the pond for 20 minutes, and in simple terms, use stocking levels of 5 centimeters of fish body length for 30 centimeters squared of pond surface area. Water gardens, as we've seen, come in every shape and size, from the dynamic flow and movement of stream, waterfall, and fountain, to the still tranquility of ponds. They are in every case places of great beauty. What started as an empty stretch of lawn was soon marked out, excavated, and transformed into a whole new world. If your pond water turns pea soup green, you have an algae bloom. A properly planted pool should balance itself, and the algae bloom will disappear as your other pond plants use up the nutrient dissolved in the water. Blanket weed, another algae, is easily removed by twirling it onto a stick and then relegating it to the compost heap.
Are you inspired? I hope so. Creating a water garden is the beginning of a beautiful long-term relationship with nature. Be sure you plan for the largest possible water feature right from the beginning, because it only takes a few minutes of maintenance a week to keep the thing looking glorious. So start water gardening as soon as you can and bring that little bit of magic home to your garden.
If you have enjoyed this video, there are many more Newnham videos to add to your collection. For the next best thing to live demonstrations from RHS experts, you can choose from the instructive titles in the Practical Guide series, from herb growing to gardening in the greenhouse. Alternatively, you can take an armchair tour through the world's great gardens. The Society's magnificent showpiece reveals its secrets in the 4 titles in the Wisley Through the Seasons series. And we tell the story of the birth of a great national garden in Rosemore, a garden in the making. There's even a chance to learn more about the extraordinary gardens and flowers of South Africa. For a brochure covering all the RHS gardening videos and some 50 other special interest titles, contact us here at the Newnham Video Collection.